Okay, welcome back to Strength Coach Tutorial, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to write a programming code that is going to allow you to one button click and save your program in a master program database. So how this works is I have a button up here at the top that says save this program, and I'm going to type in save my program where it asks me to name the program. When I hit OK and then I go to my program database, you're going to see that it's saved that entire program in a master database that I'm going to be able to recall at a later date. This is going to be a really powerful tool for anyone who's starting to save a bunch of different types of programs or develop a program database that they want to be able to recall with different groups of athletes. So let's get into it. Okay, so we're back with the same template that we ended off with in the last Strength Coach Tutorials video, number 52. And in that last video, we had all of our drop-down menus working so that we can select any of our exercises at any time. And this is going to allow us to just kind of create our program on our program sheet on the right there. Now, for today's video, I'm going to try something that I haven't done yet in any of my videos, and that is introduce some Visual Basic coding. So what Visual Basic is it's a language or a coding language that exists within Excel that actually allows you to make Excel do different tasks with one click of a button or the running of what's called a macro. And a macro would just be a collection of instructions that you give in Excel to do whatever basically you tell it to do. Now, in order to enable sort of the Visual Basic coding, we have to turn on what's called the Developer tab in our Excel. Okay, and so the way to do this, at least in the Microsoft for PC, is if I go to File, then go all the way down to Options, and then I want to go to where it shows the ribbon, and on the right side here, it's going to give a list of different ribbon options. Your ribbon is the thing along the top where all of your kind of file, home, insert, draw, those tabs all live. And you will actually have to click the developer tab on and then hit OK. And then you should have this tab up here. Now, before we get too far into this coding, I'm going to ask you that if you are finding any value in these videos, that if you could please like and subscribe to the channel, and make sure you hit that bell notification so that you know whenever I'm going to be putting out new videos, and be able to keep up to date with everything that Strength Coach Tutorials has to offer. And then secondly, if you have ideas for videos, please fill out the survey in the description below. And then, like I said earlier, when I use those videos for future topics or those video ideas for future topics, I'll send you that sheet so that you can have a copy of it. So you basically are having me solve your problems. And if I have the ability to solve it, I will solve it in a future video. And then the first caveat I want to make with VBA coding is that the syntax can be pretty finicky. So for the purposes of this video, I won't be typing in any of the code live. I'm actually going to take you through some code that I already have created, and that way I can ensure that it's going to work properly for the video, and we can kind of not waste any time on that. So with that all out of the way, let's get after this coding. Now that we have our developer tab turned on, you're actually going to click on the developer tab, and then on the very right side there is a box called Visual Basic. So I'm just going to click there, and it's going to open up this window. And in this window, you're going to notice a few different things. On the left-hand side here, you're going to see the project. And inside of this project, you'll see the name of whatever the workbook is that you're working on, and then all of the sheets. Now, Excel gives each sheet a name, and this will be the same as when you create a new sheet, either sheet 1, sheet 2, sheet 3, all the way up to however many you create. And then in this instance, the name that I've given the sheet is actually in the brackets beside it. So whatever the name that you give the sheet is, that's in the brackets. Then underneath that, I have what's called a module. And a module essentially acts as a notepad where you can scribble down all your codes and then be able to run them across any one of the sheets. Now, that's where I like to put the majority of my codes when I'm creating them. And in order to create a module, I would just right click anywhere in here, and then I can go to insert and then go to module, and I can insert a new module, which basically gives me a blank line or a blank notepad from which to start to program out any of the codes that I want to run. I'm going to delete this module 2, so I just right click on it and then remove module 2, and then it's going to ask me if I want to remove it, and I'll say yes. Whoops, cancel. It's going to ask me if I want to export it, so let me do that one more time. So remove module 2, it's going to ask me, do I want to export it? No. But the reason you would want to export it is these modules are actually usable across different workbooks. If you program them out correctly, I could import that to another workbook and it would work right away to do whatever the function is that I want. Now, on to kind of the code that is going to make this whole thing work. As you can see here now, we're selected on module 1, and I actually have a selection of the code here, and I'm going to edit this sort of as we go to make it work for our program. So what you're going to see here is whenever I want to make a new code, I have to start it off with the word sub, and then whatever I want the code name to be, and then two brackets facing each other. So for example, I could go sub and then video code and then bracket, and it's going to automatically put the end sub in. Now anything I put between sub and end sub is going to be one set of code. So whenever I would click to run video code, it's going to basically go through everything in between sub and end sub and complete it in order. Then the next thing that you have to do is actually define some variables that you're going to be using throughout your code. And a easy way to, or the way to do this is you use the word dim, D-I-M, which actually stands for dimensions. And what you're basically telling Excel is what you want the dimensions of the variables that you're defining to be. So for me, I've defined a couple variables here as act sheet, which is just going to be a worksheet. And we're going to use that as the active sheet that we have selected. That's why I've called it act sheet. And then dim cell range, which is going to be our selected range. And I've named that as a range. So we could also call something as a string, as an integer, etc., whatever we need it to kind of be for the purposes of our code. Then we can set our actual variables. So I've set active sheet or act sheet to be our active sheet and select range to be our selection. So just as a reminder of what this code actually does, I'm going to minimize this window. And to run a code without creating a button, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click right beside where it says Visual Basic in the top and click macro. And the only code that I have in there right now was my copy program code, and I'm going to run that code. And it's going to ask me to name this program. So I'm going to put trial number 1. And when I hit OK, it's going to run that code, and it's going to save my workout in the next available row underneath my program database tab that I have created. So I have 3 tabs at the bottom here. I have the video tab, the exercise tab that we went through, and then a program database tab where I'm going to be storing all of the programs that we create. So let's bring up our Visual Basic editor again and start to go through this. The first thing that we want the code to actually do is bring up that box where it asks us to name our code. So we're going to set a variable as program name, and then what that equals, it's going to equal an input box, and then in brackets it asks me what I want to put in that input box. So in this case I put name this program, but if I was to put something like funny video name in there, and then minimize this and then run the code again, you can see that now instead of name this program, it says funny video name in there. So I can just put haha, and that's me laughing, and then I hit OK, and it still is going to save our program. But in this case, it's called it ha 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 because that's where the input box is. So let's go back to our code. So instead I want it to say name this program. And you can really have that say whatever you want. So again, just the syntax for that is just input box and then bracket quotations and then whatever you would want that box to say, and then quotation bracket to kind of get rid of it. And then the next thing I have in this code is application.screenUpdating equals false. And what that does is as it's running code on different sheets, it's not going to jump around from sheet to sheet. It's just going to stay on the sheet that I'm on. Okay, so it just doesn't update the screen as it's doing the different things. It just stays where it is and the code runs and does whatever it's supposed to do. So then the next big piece of the program is we actually have to find where we're going to paste the program once we copy it. Okay, so the way to do that is I'm going to define a variable as program row, and what that's going to be equal to, it's going to be equal to the sheet program database, and then dot range, and I want it to look in column A, and when you're programming out ranges, it's always column and then row, and for the row I'm going to use and rows.count. I want it to count the rows all the way to the end and then come up. So XL up means that it starts at the bottom and comes up. And then what I want it to go to is dot row and then +1. So I want it to come up from the bottom to the first row that has something in it and then add 1 to that for the first blank row. So basically, if I was to do that on the actual sheet, I'm going to give you an example of what that might look like. On the program database, if I was to scroll basically down here to the bottom and use control and go up, it's going to take me up to the first row that has something in it, and then I'm going to come down 1 row, and that gives me the first blank row. So that's how that code works. Again, what it does is you go down here, and then the XL up just means control up, and I come down 1 row for the first available blank row. So we'll go back into our code here. So then the other thing that I want it to look for is if the sheet's program database A1 equals double quotation marks, which we know from other videos means nothing. If it equals nothing, then what I want it to do is just start in, or then I want program row to be equal to row 1. So basically what that means is if the sheet's completely blank, just start in row 1. And then application.cutCopy mode just means that I don't want it to show when I'm actually creating a cut and copy. Okay, so it won't show the highlights, it'll just create that. So that's the code that we would use to find the actual row where we're going to paste it. And from now on, program row refers to whatever that row is. So if it was row 5 that was the first blank row, program row is going to be row 5. If it was row 6 or 7, then that's what program row is going to be. So from now on in our code, we can refer to program row as the row where we're going to be where we're going to be pasting different amounts of or where we're going to be pasting our program in. So we're going to use that throughout the rest of our code to actually paste in the different values. Now the next piece that we want to kind of tackle is we want to paste the name that we've taken down in program name, and we want to paste that in the A column. So if we go back to our actual sheet, whenever we create a new name, we just want to paste it in column A. So it's going to sit right in here. So you can see I have something typed in there, clear program, and I'll show you what that means in a future video. But basically what we have is the trial 1 that we've always created or already created, and then the ha 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 from the name the funny movie box that we had pop up. So we want to always paste the name of our program in column A. So we'll go back to our Visual Basic. So how we're going to do that is we're going to select Sheets, Program Database. Again, we're selecting that sheet. And the reason it's quotations program database is because we're referring to the name of the sheet. Dot range, and the range we want is the column, which is A, so quotations A, and we want program row, which we know refers to the first blank row, and we want that to equal program name. So what this is saying is select program database and then select column A and then the program row. So in our case, this would refer to, I believe, A4, and then make that equal to program name. And then hit OK. Application cut copy mode, we don't want to show any of the steps. And then the last piece of this code is we actually want to copy everything in our workout and then paste it into the actual row. So what this is going to look like if I was to do this manually, I'm going to minimize this. What I want the code to do is I actually want it to come to this sheet. I basically want it to select all of B6 all the way down to B44 and basically copy that and go to program database, and at B4 I want it to paste it this way all the way across. So I would paste it, and what that would be called is a transpose. So you would transpose that onto these cells. So if I actually did copy that, I'll hit Control C, and then I would go here and hit transpose, and you can see it's just giving me a preview of what it would do, but it basically transposes it all the way across. And if I hit OK, you can see where that would go to is it goes to AN, and that's an important thing to understand. Okay, so I'm going to Control Z just to get rid of that. So we're going from B4 all the way to AN. So let's go back to our code and see what that looks like. So what do we want to do? Like I said, we want to select B6 to B44 and copy. And then we want to select sheets, program database, range B, and program row. So in this case, it's going to be equal to B4. And we're starting in the B column because we've already pasted the program name in the A column. And the program row is going to stay the same. Dot paste special. And what we want it to do is paste all the values. Operation XL none, so no control, and then we want it to skip the blanks. We don't want it to skip blanks, so we go skip blanks, space, underscore, double dots equals false, but we do want it to transpose, so it's transpose double dots equals true. So basically what this is saying is copy B6 all the way to B44, and then I want you to paste it in program database B4 and paste all the values, skip the blanks, and then transpose it. So if we run the code, I'll show you what that looks like. I'll minimize this, go back to my video. I'm going to exit out of this. Visual Basic, I want to hit macros, copy program. This is what it looks like. Hit OK, and what it's done is it's pasted it all the way across, and you can see that it's actually highlighted all the way over there where it's actually pasted. Okay, so then the only other thing we have to do now is we have to create the same code that's going to copy this whole column, and we want to copy all the way from the team name all the way down, and then this column, this one, and this one. So we need to do the same thing basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more times. So I'm going to take you basically through that process, and it's going to be really simple now that the code all works properly. So I'm going to go back to my Visual Basic, and all I have to do now is take this one piece of code because it works properly, and I'm just going to leave a space, and I'm going to paste that in there. But instead of B6, what do we actually want to copy this time? We want to copy C2 all the way to C44. So I'll go back to my Visual Basic, C2 all the way to C44. So I'm going to put C in there. And where do we want to start at pasting? Remember when we pasted the last one, it went all the way over to AN. So we want to start pasting right after that, which is actually going to be in AO. Okay. So if we were to run this code now, it's going to take the next piece and paste it on top. So let's just try that out and make sure it works. So what we should see is the number 455 at the end of this whole code. Okay, so I'm going to hit run program. So macros, copy program, run, and trial number 4, I think we're on, hit OK. And if I go to my program database, you can see it's pasted, it's pasted, it's pasted. At AO, it started pasting the next set of values, and then 455 is at CE. So when we paste in the next piece of code, we're going to start at CF, and then we'll keep pasting over. So let's go back to our Visual Basic, and I'm going to do the next piece of code, copy that down, and in this case we want D6 all the way to D44, right? It goes back to 6 because we're not copying all the team name and everything all over again. And where did we say we wanted to start pasting that? We wanted it at CF. Okay, and that's going to paste in the next bit. And I'm just going to continue doing this all the way to do all of the code. So the next one would be E6 to E44. And I know that that's going to start at DS. And then the next piece would be F6 to F44. And that one is going to start at column FF. And then the next one, I think we only got a couple more here. The next one is going to be G6. Hold on, I can do this. G6 to G44. And that one is going to start at GS. So you can see once the code works, it's pretty easy just to update it to fit your needs. And then the last one we have is H6 to H44. And that one is going to start at IF. So that should all work properly. And then the last thing I'm going to put in is one of those application cut copy mode false, because that's just going to speed up the code if it doesn't have to show that. So I'm going to paste that in, and I'm just going to tab it over because it's good kind of coding context to have tabs in there. And then I'm going to end it off with ActSheet.select and select range dot select. And all that's telling it is application.screen updating back to true. And all that's telling it is I want it to kind of select the active sheet and select the active range, and then come back to the start. Now, one last thing about coding. When you're starting to write code in Excel, what you can use are kind of single quotations, and you'll notice that this font is green, and what that is that's basically a comment. So this is where I would type what I am doing in my code, and when it's green, Excel doesn't read that as code, it just skips right by it. But when you're actually writing code, you should probably comment all the way through what your code is actually trying to accomplish, so that if someone else was to start to edit your code, they know where to pick up, or they know how to pick up from where you left off, or you can come back to it at a later date and be like, what the heck was I thinking? But you can read your comments and know exactly what you're doing. I generally use it to separate out different areas of my code. So you can see we have the name of program, we have the get row to paste program, and then the categories piece, and then our cut copy macro just to sort of title it up here. But I use that to separate out my code. So let's run this and see what it does and make sure that we haven't made any mistakes. So macro, and just to see that it works, let's put finished FIN in the last column that, or the last cell that possibly might get copied. So run this macros copy program, and does this work? And hit OK. And it looks like it ran properly, and you can see it just selected back to the worksheet that we're working on with no specific column being selected or no specific row. If I go to program database, I'll scroll back over. So does this work? We'll highlight that whole row, and we should be able to scroll all the way over, and we should be able to find finished at some point right there. So it's copied all the way to JR. So basically every cell that we've put our program in lives all the way from A all the way to JR. And it seems like that code works. Then if I wanted to delete these codes from my database, I would just sort of delete the row where they live, hit delete. And if I was to run the code one more time, trial number 1, it should paste it back in that first row if we've programmed it correctly, which it has. So that's basically how you would write the code. to copy your program. And a couple of key features of this program is that everything's written in columns, so that when I'm actually selecting, I can just select the whole column and then transpose it over. I don't have to select one cell here and one cell here and one there and one there and one there and one there in order to try to copy the program over. So a little bit of organization up front makes it really easy. And then the last piece of this is let's actually add a button that we can just press right on our sheet, that I don't have to go macro and run code every time. So the way that I can do that is I can go to insert, and we can just insert a shape, and we'll just use this shape. Looks kind of buttony, and I'll put that in here, and I'll go to shape format. I'm just going to hit align, snap to grid, and snap to shape, and I'm just going to make it the size of this cell just because I think it looks better. So basically that's going to live right in that cell. I'll double click on there, and I'll type in save program, and I'm going to edit the text a little bit to make it kind of go in the middle. And then what I'm going to do is if I take this shape and right click on it, there's an option to assign a macro to it. So I'm going to hit assign macro and take the copy program macro that we've created, hit OK. And then I'm going to click here, and every time I click there, now that program is, or that macro is going to run. So trial number 2, hit OK, and just to make sure that that's worked, you can see that it saved it in the next row. So now for all intents and purposes, this is just a button that lives on my programming sheet, and if I wanted to hide that, I can easily hide the whole thing and the button's gone, but I'll unhide it and bring it all back. So that's a way that you can start to create some database codes where you can save your programs. And then in future videos, what I'm going to show you how to do is actually bring it back out and paste it back onto your worksheet, so that essentially what will happen is we'll copy this program, but then how do we recall that program? So we'll be able to select from all the programs that we've copied and actually pull it back onto this worksheet, which in turn basically turns Excel into a programming software that you can use to just store all of your speed agility or your weightlifting or any programs that you kind of want to write. So I hope this video helped you out. Please let me know in the comments below if you want to see more of these VBA coding type videos, or if you'd prefer to see more kind of strength and conditioning sheets videos. This was a new type of video that I'm trying out to see if there's an interest in that, but I hope that this is something that's going to help you out. And again, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, if you could just like and subscribe and share this video, that's really going to help me out keep creating future videos. So hopefully see you next time.